Hello everyone, welcome to the day two of IncubateIND Developer Tech Camp on Robotic Process Automation and AI Center. So I hope you all had a great day yesterday. We learned a lot and completed tasks we saw on social media activity as well. So I guess it was a win-win for everyone yesterday. And I would really hope that you enjoyed today as well, as we have Nisarg with us. You all know about him. He is the senior consultant at Wonderbots and UiPath MVP. Along with that, he is, one of the person who contributes a lot to the community of RPA and gives back to the community. So he'll be taking on the session today again. And before that, I would also like to tell you that in Incubated Developer Tech Camp, we organize many tech camps on different trending technologies every fortnight, and the next tech camp is on AR, augmented reality, and after that we have an elastic. So do visit website, that's incubateind.com/IDTC, and sign up for more tech camps. So without the further delay, I would like to invite our speaker, Mr. Nisar. Just give me a moment. Yeah. Hello, Nisar.
Hi Anuj, am I audible?
Yes, you are clearly audible.
Perfect. Thank you so much Anuj for having me here on the day two as well. Yesterday we had a really great session. So today I'll continue with the further AI center development, and we will see some more interesting bots, and we'll see some more interesting use case into the session. Thank you Anuj.
Great. So I'll just go back to backstage and over to you.
Thank you so much, Anuj. Hello, everyone. Good morning, and I hope you're having a great Sunday. And today we are going to learn a lot of new information. Yesterday we have gone through. So let me quickly share my screen so that we can go through quickly what we have seen yesterday. So yesterday we have seen what is UiPath AI Center and how to enable UiPath's AI Center. And then also we have seen a couple of information about the UiPath's end-to-end platform, what is UiPath's automation cloud platform and how it actually works. And we have seen that UiPath AI Center comes into manage section where UiPath's end-to-end automation enterprise has 5 phases: discover, build, manage, run, and engage. So out of that, we have seen that AI Center comes into manage section or manage phase. We have also seen that how actually AI and RPA works together. What is the integration point, and how do we leverage this integration? What is the actual integration of AI and RPA? We have also seen yesterday. Just a second. Yes. We have also seen yesterday how we can choose a ML model, how we can deploy a ML model on AI Center. Also, we have seen how can we easily drag and drop that model from our AI Center into the activities, and we can easily use it in our UiPath workflow. Also, we have seen that we can switch and we can put up decision points within our UiPath workflow where we can retrain the model. We have also seen that the model or the AI is helpful whenever RPA is only a tedious automation process. But if we need the brains for the robot, then we can definitely add AI Center to the robot. We have seen how to deploy ML skill and how to consume that ML skill within our UiPath workflow. Also, we have seen whenever we predict something, we can also count how many times we have used it and how many predictions we have made with the specific model. And we have seen how can we deploy a specific ML model. Now, without wasting time, today we are going to look at new ML models or new machine learning skills in UiPath AI Center. And today we are going to talk about specifically retrainable machine learning models. And then we are going to have a look at a beautiful use case with email automation, and we will look at how can we predict language, how can we detect a language, and how can we translate a specific language. So let's go ahead and let's get started with our today's demonstration. So the first thing that we would like to see in UiPath AI Center. So let me navigate. As we have seen yesterday, how do you access to UiPath AI Center? You have to register to cloud.uipath.com, Once you register, you have to enable your enterprise edition, and then you have to create projects in the UiPath AI Center. You have to enable AI Center for your specific tenant, and then you can leverage UiPath AI Center. I have seen yesterday a couple of people have created workflows and tagged us in LinkedIn, and thank you so much for that. It was really helpful for us to track down your progresses, and it was really wonderful to see the bots working live. Keep doing that, and today also we will give you a challenge at the end of the session, so stay tuned for the challenge, and it's going to be an interesting challenge, definitely. So the first thing that we are going to look at today is how can we retrain a specific machine learning model. Now, yesterday we have seen we retrained a restaurant feedback ML model with the restaurant dataset. But today we are going to look at specifically how can we retrain a model and how can we check whether model is trained or not. So the first thing that you have to do is always make sure that before you create any ML skill or any machine, before you try to use any machine learning model, the most important thing that you should take care of is data. Now, what do I mean by data? So the data set that you provide to any model, the data set has to be pre-processed. Now, when I say the dataset has to be pre-processed, I mean to say that the dataset has to be made compatible with the specific machine learning model. Now, for example, if I want to work with this model, which I have deployed here, the model is profit prediction, and the model is about teapot AutoML regression. Now, if I want to retrain a teapot AutoML regression model, what I will do is, now let's go ahead and let's have a look at the model. So I'm going in out of the box packages, where I'm going to tabular data. So there are two models in the tabular data. One is AutoML regression, one is teapot XG boost regression. Now, if I want to use this particular model, then I have to learn this specific teapot AutoML regression model. What is the input parameters, what it gives as output, and how do I retrain this specific model? In order to do that, we have documentations available given by UiPath. So all you have to do is just search TPOT AutoML regression UiPath. Now, if I search it, I will first of all land on a document page, which is docs.uipath AI Fabric documents. And here you can see you have all the out of the box packages documents available right here on the left hand side. So you can go through each and every document and you can understand how exactly you can utilize it. Now, if I want to use teapot AutoML regression model, first of all, I will try to look at what is the input data type of this model. So the input data type of this model is a JSON data. The input description is this model takes input in such a format where you give feature columns. And then the output that you get is into format of this, where you get the predictions. Now, this model supports all three types of pipeline: full training, training, and evaluation pipeline. The data set, when we talk about the data set, this is the most important part. What does it accept as a data set? I had this question yesterday from one of the students, that how can we decide what type of data set do we have to use for a specific ML model? You can understand what type of a specific data set you need on this pages, where we have separate documentation pages given by UiPath for us. Now here it says the dataset format which is acceptable for TPOT AutoML regression model is this ML package will look for CSV file in your dataset, not in the subdirectories. The CSV file needs to follow these rules. Now, what are the rules that you should follow before you upload the data to the dataset? The first row of the data must contain header or column. Now let's go ahead and quickly have a look at our data set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly jump on the data document of AI Center, and let's have a data set look. So this is the data that I have trained this model with, which is training data and testing data. Now in the training data, let me open the train data set. So in the train data set, I have first row I have my first row, which is nothing but a header, which is matching with the requirement here. So it says the first row should contain header or column name, and that is what I have here, where I have first row as the header names, where it says R&D spend, administration, marketing spend, state, and profit. Correct? Now, what does it say? So it says in the second point, or in the second rule, it says all columns must be numerical, either integer or float. The model is not able to perform feature encoding. However, it is able to perform target encoding. Now, what do I mean by encoding? For example, let me quickly navigate back to the dataset. So this was the original dataset. Let me open the original dataset. So this was my original dataset, where if I zoom in, you can see I have first column as R&D spend, second column as administrator, third column as marketing spend, fourth column as state, and fifth column as profit. However, according to the rules, this particular model, which is a teapot AutoML regression model, will not perform encoding of the feature columns. First of all, let me tell you what are the feature columns and what is called as a target column. In machine learning, whenever you train a particular machine learning model, you use certain data as an input to predict a certain value. That means here my input is R&D spend, administrator, marketing spend, and state. And I am expecting output to be predicted by the bot as profit. Now, in such case, as my machine learning rule here, this particular model has a rule that it says this model is not able to perform feature encoding. That means this model will not be automatically encoding this state data. That means text information cannot be converted to integer or float automatically. So it is mentioned in the rule that I have to do it explicitly before I upload this data to the dataset. Now remember this. This rule is very specific to only teapot AutoML regression model. The rules differ from model to model. That's where you have to read the documentation of each and every model before you actually use it, so that it would be very useful for you to understand how this model actually works or what is the functionality of the specific model. Now, if I would not be able to change, or if I would not be able to encode this automatically, so what I will do is I will try to encode it myself. And I will try to make sure that this data is capable of sending as an input to this model. And that's where I call it as data pre-processing. So pre-processing of the data, which is nothing but accustoming your data according to the need of the model, is called as the data pre-processing. And for that, you have to make sure that you follow all the rules. Now, in order to create this data acceptable by this particular format, what I will do is I will first of all check what are the different types of categories here in the state. So there are only 3 states: California, Florida, and New York. So what I can do is, if I want to convert into this part into integer, right? If I convert this part into numerical format, so I will try to capture only state of California. I will translate it into a numerical format as 1. I will mark entire California as 1. Okay. I want to keep this format. And then what I will do is, next I will mark only Florida. I will mark Florida as 2, and the entire Florida state becomes 2. Then I will mark New York as 3, and then the entire New York state becomes 3. And this way, what I have done is I have simply tried to convert the column, which is a state column, from text format to integer format, which is acceptable by this teapot AutoML regression model. Now this model accepts only the format of integer, and that's where I converted it into 1, 2, and 3, where I have to remember what I converted. I converted it from California New York, and Florida as 1, 2, and 3 respectively. Now I have to make sure that I remember this. And now I'm going back and I'm just changing back because I don't want to mess up with the data. But here, so this is the original data which I am not manipulating, but this is the data set which I have changed. Now remember, I have converted the data as per the acceptance format, which is accepted by the teapot model. Now this is a trained data. Once you completely process or pre-process the data set, now you have to think about what is the next step. For any machine learning model to pass the input data set, you need to classify the data set into a ratio of 80 and 20. Now when I say the ratio of 80-20, let me show you quickly how we can do that. For example, if I have 100 rows of data, then what I have to do is I have to separate my data set in such a way that my trained data set should have 80 rows and my test data set should have 20 rows. Always remember the classification of the train and test data has to be 80-20. Always, no matter how the numbers are. So in this case, where I had the startup data set, in this data set, I had how many rows? The closest. I had overall 50 rows. So for 50 rows of data, how will I classify it? I will summarize everything. I know it is a little bit confusing, but you will understand it very easily. Now we have 50 rows of data, so I will classify it as 40 rows for only train data set and 10 rows as test data set. Now let me summarize it again. Now what we have seen till now is that for a specific machine learning model, we have specific rules. Now in this, we have seen teapot AutoML regression model, where it had specific rules for dataset to be uploaded. And the rules were the first row of data must contain header, which we followed, right? We followed that. Every ML model has a specific rule. So the rules for teapot AutoML is that the first row has to be header or columns. And then it said that all the feature columns have to be encoded before you upload. Now, what do I mean by encoding? So we saw that we have this data set as an input. And we had here, instead of the states, we had here California, Florida, and New York. So we converted that into integer. And then we saw that there are total 50 rows of data. It says 51, including header, there are total 50 rows of data. So what did I say? A rule of database breaking. What is the rule? So if you have 100 rows, the train data should have 80 rows, test data should have 20 rows. Similarly, if I have here 50 rows, what is the number of train data I should have? Anyone in the comment section. If I have 50 rows, what is the number of training data I should have? And what is the number of rows I should have in test data? Perfect. So Salman has answered 40 rows for training data, correct? And test data should have the remaining 10. Perfect. Now that you have understood the concept of how to pre-process data and how to classify data into training set and testing set, now let's quickly have a look at bigger data. Now, for example, if I have a data set, something like, let me show you a quick data set, which is a bigger data set, okay? Which would be even more interesting. For example, this spam email dataset. Now here I have two rows. Sorry, two columns. Here I have two columns of data. The first column is message body and the second column is label. Now the message body includes email body and the label includes the label of that specific email. The message body contains email body from which you have to define whether this email is spam email or it is a non-spam email. Now, in this dataset, I have overall 1083. That means including header 1082 data. So tell me quickly, how should I? So what is going to be my test data and what is going to be my training data? Tell me. The total rows are 1082. Anyone in the chat section? The ratio is 80-20%. So what is the 80% of 182 rows? Okay. Okay, I am already getting some answers. Few people are saying 866 train data. Couple of people are saying so. The correct answer is 866 or 865 is also correct answer. So you need at least 866 or 865 rows as train data. And then the rest of the data, whatever that you have, is going to be remaining in the testing data. Correct? Okay, perfect. So we have so many answers now, 866 and 216. We have all the correct answers in the chat section. You guys are doing it amazing. Perfect. So now that you have understood, we have to classify this data into 866 and 216 ratio. But also you have to make sure that whenever you classify, your label has to be discrete. That means if you by mistakenly only classify data as a test data where everything is labeled as non-spam, then you would not be able to identify the capacity of that machine learning model, and you will not be able to check the accuracy, or you will get the wrong accuracy. That's where you have to make sure that the label are mixed. In the total data of 866 and 216, both of the cases you should have mixed data. Okay, perfect. So now that we have understood that we have separated this data, now tell me one thing: which machine learning model I can apply on this data in order to identify the category of a data? We have seen yesterday one model. Which ML model we can apply on this data? Can anyone tell me in the chat section? We have seen one model yesterday where we have seen how we can classify data, and for classification of data to a specific category, which ML model do we have to use? Anyone? So we have to use English text classification model. Okay, Sajid answered, but Sajid, you just mentioned English. So it has to be a detailed man. English text classification model. Perfect. So how do we use English text classification model and why? Because English text classification model will classify based on the data which has categories where you might have only single row as in feature, and you might have the another column which is a target column. Now target column is nothing but the column which you have to predict using your machine learning model, and the input column is called as a feature column. Always remember, whenever you talk in language of machine learning, the input column is a feature column and the output column which you want to predict is a target column. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and look at English text classification model. So why do we have to use English text classification, and what are the parameters, what are the rules for English text classification? So it accepts data as JSON, The input description, it accepts simple data as a string. For example, they have passed just a simple string in double quotation, right? Now, what is the output description? So once you train this model, if you pass a string, this model will return you output predicting the specific class and the accuracy or the confidence of that specific class. And then what are the rules of the dataset? By default, this model will read all the files with the .csv and .json extension. You can pass CSV or JSON both provided directly. CSV file format. So they want a specific file format in this CSV in order to train. What is the file format expected? Each CSV file is expected which can have any number of columns. Only 2 will be used by this model. CSV file can have any number of model, but the model will train based on only 2 rows. The one row has to be a feature column. The second row has to be a target column. Now, when you pass, you have to provide input column name and target column name. Now, without wasting our time, let's have a quick look at how can we leverage. So there we have given environment variables also. So let's retrain this model in AI Center. What we will do is we will create a project. We will say email spam detection or email spam, or we can say spam email prediction. And we can say here predict the spam emails. And I will create AI Center project here. Now I have to upload the data set. So I will create a new folder called as training data. Okay, create. And now I will upload the file. In order to upload the file, you can also drag the data. So what I will do is I will simply hold this data and I will drag it here. 1 second. I have to upload the upload files. It says drag the data. So what I will do is I will simply say drag the train data. So I will drag train data here and I will upload. So I have uploaded the training data set. Now let's create the test data set. So I will create new folder called as test data. I will create the folder. In the test data folder, I will upload the test data here and I will upload it. Done. Now we have done the first step. We have created the ML project with the name of spam email prediction. We have uploaded the data set. Now let's go ahead and let's select the ML package. So click on ML packages, select out of the box package. Select the package which is English text classification because we want to classify based on the classes. As this model is retrainable, that is a perfect model for us. So we will select retrainable model and we'll click on submit. Then we'll enter the package name, which is nothing but spam email prediction, and we'll try to say submit. As soon as we submit, the package is in the state of undeployed. That means the package is available, but it is not deployed yet. Now we have to click on pipeline. So you see, we have been going through step by step right from the beginning. So the first step that we followed was creating and uploading the data set. So we first of all pre-processed data. We separated the data into train.csv and test.csv. We uploaded the data to the data sets. Then we selected the ML package, and now we have to train the package with the pipeline. So what we have to do is click on create new. Always remember there are three types of pipeline, but in order to train the model, we are going to use 2 pipelines. The first pipeline we are going to use is train pipeline. And the second one is evaluation pipeline. Okay, sorry. So let's go ahead and let's try to use training pipeline. So I will select the pipeline as train run, choose the package as spam email prediction, choose the package measure version as 2. Now remember, while you are training the package, the measure version will always be the latest version available and the minor version will be 0. But when you select the evaluation pipeline, you have to select the minor version as 1. Always remember this rule. When you select the minor version for evaluation pipeline, it has to be 1 always for evaluation pipeline. But for training pipeline, minor version is 0. Perfect for the first time. Now choose the input data set. The input data set we have uploaded as training data and test data. So I will select training data. Now next thing. In the next thing, I have to enter the environment variables or environment parameters. So I will click on add environment parameter. Click on this add new button. Now what are the environment variables we need? So go here, and we are using English text classification model. So in the English text classification model web page or the document of UiPath, we have given couple of environment variables here, where we don't have to use all this, but we can use couple of it. So for input column, it says default is input. But in our data set, if we open our data set, our default data, our input data is message body. So what I will do is I will copy this message body column name, and in our AI center, I will enter the value as message body. And the message body is nothing but our input column. So I will copy this input column and I will put it as a parameter. So here what we have done, the default value which was expected by the model is input and target, but our column names of our data set is message body as an input and label is target element. So what we will do, copy this label, create one more environment variable. So save this environment variable, create one more. Our output column is nothing but, or target column, we will copy the target column. Target column is nothing but label. So we have selected two environment parameters. The first parameter is input column. We have given it name as message body. The second parameter is target column, which we have given name as label. And now what we will do is we will simply click on create and we will run the model. And that's how easily you can train a specific machine learning model. I hope we have seen, or we have understood how we can train a specific retrainable ML model very easily by pre-processing data. So we have first of all captured the data, then we pre-processed the data as per the requirement. We separated the data into 80% and 20% ratio. We save the data in .csv file. Remember, do not save the data in Excel format. Save the data in .csv file. Upload the data in the training data and test data. Select the ML package, create the pipeline, and then you can get the pipeline status in the ML logs here. You can get the status of all the pipeline here. Now this will take a long time, and that's where we will not stick to that. This will take a long time to execute, to run, and to train. Okay. In the meantime, I will show you already pre-trained ML model. So let's go to profit prediction in the pipeline. Now, once your pipeline, both the pipelines are successfully executed, your pipeline will look like this. So when you train, your training pipeline is completed, you will see how much time it took. So it took 44 seconds here for this data set to train this particular pipeline, and it is successfully completed. Now, once the training pipeline is successfully completed, when you see it like this, successful, then you have to start building your second pipeline, which is evaluation. And the second evaluation pipeline, as I have already told you, the version will be 1.1, or in case of English text classification, it will be 2.1. And when the prediction pipeline or the evaluation pipeline will be successful, you will get a score of how accurate your model is going to predict the data. Now, in this case of a profit prediction, my model is accurately having a score of 80%. That means whenever I'm going to predict something using this model, my data is going to be 80% accurate. The chances of predictions are 80%. Then once you have completed the training, once you have completed the evaluation, now you have to navigate to the ML skill and create a ML skill based on the latest version of the package. And once you create the latest version package ML skill, once it becomes available, then you can go ahead and you can use it in your UiPath workflow. Now here, if I refresh, I can see that the profit prediction which I have already trained, I can see that model here in my UiPath workflow which says profit prediction. Isn't it wonderful? So now we have learned right from scratch how can we retrain a retrainable ML model in UiPath AI Center. Now let's have a quick look at what are the packages or what is the custom package that it creates. So here, once your training is completed, once your data training of the ML model is completed, it generates a package, a zip file. Click on this particular trained model and you can see profit prediction.zip file is created in the output. You can download this profit prediction file and it will be stored So I'm downloading this zip file here and it is stored in my local folder or a local machine, which I can later on use again, and I can upload it as a custom package. If I want to use the same package later, I can upload the downloaded package as a custom zip file in the packages. And that is how we can upload a custom package. Or also you can create your own machine learning model and you can upload it as a custom package. Now, once you download this package, which is a trained model, let's have a look at the folder structure of what all things it has. So a profit prediction folder is created. In this folder, when you train a specific model, it will create a .main file. It will download the .train file, all the requirements that are necessary. Requirements are empty right now. And you can see all the files which are used here. And if you open any one of them, you can also read through the code of the Python that is written behind in this model. So you can see here this model is having a self model, and this is the training file which is written for the specific model. And this is a pre-trained model which you can automatically upload, and you can upload it as a custom ML model. Now that we have seen how to upload a custom ML model, how to create or how to train a model, let's have a look at a new model that we will see, which is nothing but language detection. Okay. Now, what is language detection ML model? So language detection model will predict or will detect which type of language is passed as an input, and it will return the language as an output. Isn't this model interesting? So this model is already deployed. Let's have a quick look at how this model actually works. So what I will do is yesterday we have seen, in order to work with ML activities, we have to download two packages in UiPath Studio. The first package is nothing but UiPath dot, once again. Okay. The first package that you need is UiPath.mlservices.activities, and the second package that you need is UiPath Web API activities. So we will download one more package, which is Web API. It is still loading because could be because of internet issues, no problem. But as we have ML skill already installed, let's drag our ML skill in UiPath Studio. Let's connect it with the start node. Okay, let's save it. Now we have trained one more model, which is language detection. Now the language detection model in UiPath is a non-retrainable model. So the language detection model, you can get it in the language analysis package, where we have language detection model. Click on the language detection model, and this model is nothing but an open source model by Facebook Research. It takes input as in data, and it gives you output in a specific language, or it gives you output as which language you have selected, which is either Spanish, and also it gives you confidence. Now, this model is a non-retrainable model. Also, if you look at this model is already pre-trained with 176 languages. Now, 176 languages are too many languages on which it is trained. Now, this model I have already used, I have already deployed, and in order to use this model, you do not have to upload any dataset, you do not have to retrain any pipeline. You can directly use this model and you can directly start using it as an ML skill. Now, let's go ahead and let's have a look at our workflow. Now, in this detect language, if you click on the test skill, we can pass our input here. Now, what we will do is, let's pass some data and let's try to verify whether it predicts the language accurately or not. So what we will do, let's go ahead and let's try to perform English to some other random language on Google. So this is going to be our input data set, and we are just going to try it out and test it. So what we will do, I will say, my name is Nisar, and in Russian language, I'm going to copy it right from here, Google. And in UiPath test skill, I'm going to pass it, and let's see whether it predicts that this language is Russian or not. So I have clicked on test skill. It predicted that the language is Russian with the confidence of 1.0. That means it predicted with the 100% accuracy that this specific model or this specific language is a Russian language. Isn't it interesting? Now, if I change the language from here to any language, let's say I changed it to Punjabi. I copied the Punjabi language, I pasted it here in the input data, and I clicked on test skill. And it has automatically predicted that the language is Punjabi and the confidence is 1.0. That means the accuracy of this prediction is 100%. Now I will change the statement. I will change the statement to I am feeling good today. And I will change the language to, let's change the language to Japanese. And let's try to copy this Japanese language and let's see whether our language detection model predicts that this is a Japanese language. So I will click on test skill, and it predicts automatically with the 100% accuracy that this specific model or this specific language is Japanese. Now, if you're curious, let's try a few more languages. Let's say we will try some other language. Let's say Latin, or rather than Latin, let's try Hebrew. So Hebrew is a language which I doubt it will predict, but let's see whether language detection model predicts Hebrew or not. So I will copy it. I will click on test skill, and it predicted that the language that we have entered is Hebrew with 100% accuracy again. So just have a look at how accurate this model is trained. Every time you enter some details, every time you enter any input data, it is predicting almost with 100% of accuracy. Sometimes it could be 29%, sometimes it could be lower than 50%, it could be mid between 50 to 80%. But in our case, we have seen almost it is going good, right? Now, what and how can you use this language detection model? What are the real life applications? How can you use the language detection and language translation ML model? Now, for example, if you are working in a company where you are receiving client emails and your client base is a global client base where you are receiving emails in multi different languages. Now, you are working with a, let's say, a internet provider company, and you are working for a service center of that company, and you are receiving emails from each and every different country in their own native language. Now, you would not be able to detect which this specific language is, because as soon as you receive this email, and if you are only working on English model, you will redirect it to a specific language person, or you will redirect it to a specific person who works for that specific language. But in order to do that, in order to redirect that, you have to classify that. Similarly, what we can do using UiPath email activities, if I receive an email in a specific language, I can read all these emails And one by one I can read each and every email body, and I can classify that email to a specific folder. For example, let's have a look at how can we do this. So let me just delete this ML skill as of now. What we will do is we'll create some random text. Let's say I will create that I am Mr. Pradam, I am feeling good. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say Russian, and I'm going to copy this Russian text body. Okay, let me see if I can create email draft to my own self. Pass some subject and pass this body. Sorry, just a second. Let me copy it. Okay, and I pass the same subject as a subject, and I'm sending it to myself. Okay, I'm sending it to myself. Then I have another email. Let's say, for example, I will classify it as, let's say, Hindi. So I will copy this text, and what I'm going to do is, see, I have received one email in Russian language. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this text. Let me put it here. I will copy the text. I will draft an email to myself again, and I will send it to myself. Okay, I'm just giving you a sample input. Now, what I'm going to do is, whenever I have received, let's say, for example, 2 emails, now I have only one email, which is a Russian email, and I will soon receive another email, which is going to be in a Hindi language. Okay, so I have received 2 emails now. Now, what we are going to do in our UiPath Studio, we are going to use read Outlook mail message, or get Outlook mail message. Get Outlook mail message activity will read all the emails that you have received in your Outlook. For that, you have to set the folder. The mail folder is inbox. And if you want to apply any filter, you can apply a filter. Now, which emails do you want to read? I want to read only unread emails, and I want to read top 10 emails. So I will change it from top 30 to top 10. And all the emails which I will receive, I want to make sure that I want to store them in a variable, which is list of mails. Simple, as simple as that. So I have got this list of emails. So I drag get Outlook mail message activity. I read all the emails. Now for each email, so I will drag a for each. For each activity is like a for each loop. So I will say for each email, which is from the list of emails, and this is a specific email. Okay. In for each email, this is nothing but list of mail messages. So the variable which we created, the data type of that variable is list of mail messages. What we have to do is we have to read a single email. So we will pass the type argument as browse for type, and we will pass it as a single mail message, which is nothing but system.net.mail.mail message. So always remember, select for a single email system.net.mail.mail message. I will select this, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a condition as if condition inside the for each block. I'm going to say if my single email dot body dot toString. Okay, now before I do this, let me quickly add ML skill inside this. So I will add ML skill right here inside it, and I will add assign activity right here. Now what I want to pass is I want to pass input. Okay, input variable, which is going to be a string variable. Now what is this input? I'm going to pass the email body as an input. So what I'm going to pass here, email dot body dot toString. And so the email body I will pass as input. The model I'm going to select is detect language. The input is email body. Sorry, the input is input. And the output is JSON response. I have copied that the output is JSON data, which is going to be in a string format. Okay. As of now, I will delete this if condition and let's try to print and let's try to see whether our model is working fine. So we will predict JSON data. We will write it in a write line and we'll see whether it predicts our email is in a specific language or not. Okay. Now that we have done in for each loop. And what we are going to do is we are going to read each and every email from the get Outlook mail messages. Okay. Now let's go ahead and let's say run. Let's see what we get as an output. Now the bot has already started executing. As you can see, bot has started. This is the robot. Okay. And the bot is completed execution. Let's check the output. So first time, okay, the bot is giving error. Maybe because our email body is not getting read properly. So let's try to print our email body. Let's try to print our email body first of all before we pass it to ML skill. Let's see what we get in input. Minimize the ML skill and we can comment it. So for commenting your code, you need to press Control D as a shortcut for commenting your code in UiPath. Now I have commented the code and let's try to run the model again. We have two emails which are unread emails. And if you see the output, we are getting the output from the body. And this data has to be passed as an input to this model. Let me enable this. So our input data is correct. Excuse me. Excuse me. Our input data is correct. So we have passed input as an input to this model. And we are receiving some JSON data. And that JSON data is printing as an error. We need to verify what is going on. So let's go ahead and let's run it once again. If it still doesn't work, we'll get ahead with our further execution. Okay. Now this time, for the first one, we have passed Hindi and it gives an error that it doesn't work. The second time we have passed Russian and it still tells that remove the /n. Predict process one line at a time. So maybe we have to filter that input data or maybe we have to trim that input data. So let me trim the data. So what we can do is, let's say input is equals to input.trim. So we are going to trim the data. We are going to make sure that the data is trimmed. Okay. Now trim means the trim function on a string file means that the white spaces or white characters will be totally removed from your data. Let's run it once again. And if you see, the emails are not getting read. The emails are still intact as an unread emails. That is because I have not checked the option. Inside this flowchart, there is an option called as mark the email as read once you have read it. But I have not marked this option and that's why it is still unread. Now let's see whether our issue has been resolved. Now here, as we passed the trim function, the trim function trimmed all the white spaces or all the white characters that were there in the data, and that's where it automatically predicted 100% that the language that you have passed is Hindi and the confidence is 100%. The language in the second email is Russian and the confidence is 100%. Now that our ML model is working perfectly fine, let's quickly try to, now let me download a package of Web API. Now Web API package is needed in order to work with the JSON data as we have seen yesterday. Okay. It is adding the dependencies and done. Perfect. Now, once we receive the JSON data, which is a JSON string, let's quickly deserialize this JSON. What we will do is deserialize the JSON. The JSON data that we have, we will deserialize it into a JSON object. Okay. Now, once we have the JSON object, what we will do is we will try to identify a specific data. Now, that specific data, how do we identify? We receive two parameters, language and confidence. So the first parameter is nothing but, so we'll create a variable called as language. And how do we identify it? We have to use a function which we have seen yesterday. So JSON object bracket the parameter, which is language, dot to string. Okay, is it correct? Let's verify the parameter. Perfect, the parameter is correct. And the second parameter is the confidence. So we'll create a variable called as confidence. And the parameter that we receive is confidence. Click on OK, and we have now two parameters. The first parameter is language. Second parameter is confidence. Okay, perfect. Now we have both the parameters. Let's try to apply some conditions. So I will add a if condition here. I will drag it here. I will say if, okay, if my language is equals to Russian. If my language is Russian, then I have to move the email to a folder. So I will create a folder here, new folder called as Russian. And I will create one more folder as Hindi. What I will say, if my language is Russian, I will say move my email. So move, which is move Outlook mail message. Move my email. What is the email? It is the email entity from the for each loop. This email entity. And what is the folder where you want to move it? I want to move it to a Russian named folder. And else, that means if we are accepting only two emails or if only two conditions, if the language is Russian, then move it to Russian folder. And if not, then move that email to a folder called as Hindi. And let's see whether our bot is able to classify the emails based on the language detected by AI Center. Let's say run. Now keep looking at the emails in the Outlook. The bot has given some exception which says argument exception specific folder does not exist. Okay. The folder does not exist issue is because, is there any spelling mistake? Let's try to move it to some different folder. Let's see, we move it to UiPath folder, for example. I don't know, because of newly created folder, it is not moving it instantly. And this one will keep it as personal folder. Let's try to see whether it classifies it into UiPath and personal folder. The bot is started executing. If you can see, both the emails have been classified. Both the emails are gone from the inbox. And the emails have been sent to UiPath. The Russian email has been sent to UiPath and the Hindi email has been sent to personal. That means, so these folders were the subfolders created under inbox, and that's why it was not able to classify. You have to create folder within this email ID. So what I have done is we have here classified the emails based on the language successfully into UiPath and personal folder using ML skill. And further that, if I want to send an email as a response, I can still use English to Russian ML model, which is a language translation ML model. So that's how you can create a workflow where you can utilize email as an input, where you will receive input emails, and each and every email you will read in for each loop. You will process or you will pass only the input body of your email to the ML skill, get the predictions, deserialize the data, and based on the prediction, classify the emails whether it is a Russian language, whether it is a some other language. Now, with this, I call that we have completed the part which we have to cover in today's session, and we will quickly move on to our today's challenge. So, Anuj, if you are there, can we move on to our challenge?
Yes, I guess we should move on to our challenge.
Perfect. So, the challenge of the day two. The challenge of the day two is really interesting. As we have already seen yesterday, there is a huge response on the day one challenge. We are expecting the same response on the day two challenge, and this time it is going to be a little bit tricky. The day two challenge is you have to download the Excel data, and this is the spam email dataset, which I have already shown you how we can classify that. So this is the spam email dataset. Then you have to create a train.csv, test.csv. You have to create a project in AI Center called as intelligent email classifier. You have to upload these both datasets, select the English text classification model, train the ML model, create a UiPath workflow which reads each and every email as an input. Okay, using the intelligent email classifier ML skill, you have to automatically detect whether the input email is a spam email or not, and then classify those emails in a specific folder as spam email or non-spam email. Now the workflow that you will have to create within this last 3 points, we have just now created and we have just now seen for language detection model. Similarly, you have to create this for email spam detection model, whether the email is spam or not. So I hope this use case is a little bit trickier and you would love this use case, how to build it. There is too much of data in the spam email dataset.xlsx. You have to classify the data, you have to pre-process the data and convert it into test and train. And I have also mentioned which model you have to use. So you have to use English text classification model, which you have to retrain. So with this, we will move on to questions if we have any. So we have first question from Srishti. Srishti is asking a question is, can we use 2 to 3 ML skills in one process? Yes, Srishti, we can use 2 to 3 ML skills within one workflow. We have next question from B Chinmay. 2 models we have to use. No, you don't have to use 2 models. You have to use only one model, which is English text classification. Questions. If you have any questions, let's ask the questions in the chat section. Is it possible to read Gmail data? Yes, Rakesh, it is totally possible to automate emails or to read emails from Gmail. If you want to learn more about it, navigate to my YouTube channel. You will find a playlist of UiPath basics, which is right here. UiPath training sessions, where you can see how we can automate emails. So there is email automation also, which is a session 7. You can go through this video and you can understand how you can automate Gmail data also. We have next question. We will get participation certificate. The question is for Anuj.
Yes, you will be getting the participation certificate, and if you are one of the top contributors, then you will be getting the appreciation certificate. And if you have completed both the tasks, then you will be getting the participant certificate in the next week after the completion of the tech camp.
Perfect. I hope that answers your question, Srishti. Chandan has a question. How can we separate the x86 file into train.csv and test.csv? So Chandan, that is very simple. What you can do, as you already know, you have answered my question that you have to create the data set separately as. So if you remember, I have shown you the same data, which is this one, spam email. So as you can see, I have already separated them into test and train. You just have to copy the data. You just have to copy the data and create a separate Excel. And whenever you are going to save it, so try to save it as, and we are trying to save it as, you have to select any folder, let's say, and you have to select CSV format here. Okay, I hope that answers your question. So separate out the data and separate it as CSV files. For test and train dataset, the ratio will be 4 is to 1. The ratio is not always 4 is to 1, but the ratio, yes, you can call 4 is to 1 also, which is ideally 80%, 20%. So Mr. Technical Supporter wants to summarize the first 15 minutes. Yeah. So what we have seen in the first 15 minutes is that basically with each and every ML model, you have different rules. Now the task that you have given is of English text classification model. Now, before you train this specific model, all you have to do is you have to read this documentation provided by UiPath. You have to understand what is the input data. Now here it is written input data has to be a CSV file, and each CSV file is expected to have at least two columns which are going to be used by this model. The first column is the input column and the second column is a target column, and the data has to be in a CSV file. So that's what we summarized in the first 15 minutes. So that depends on the different data. If you select any other ML model from this out of box packages, you have to select your dataset according to that.
Do we have any more questions, or shall we wrap up the session?
Even if you have any
I
more questions,
guess,
you can anytime reach out to me.
yeah. So I guess we are good to go for the session. So thank you, Nisar. Thank you for taking out time and joining us on this initiative, and taking on the stage and guiding the people who are interested in RPA and AI. So it has been a great, what we say, great weekend learning AI. Even I learned a lot. So yes, if you have anything else to say.
Thank you so much, Anuj. Thank you so much, especially to Wonderbots and UiPath for organizing this event and for supporting this event. And special thanks to IDTC for such a wonderful tech camp. You are inspiring a lot of students to learn new technology and coming forward with a huge knowledge base, from the beginning. And this is really a wonderful platform, which I was expecting, to be given during my college days. Thank you so much, Anuj. Thank you so much to your team for creating such a wonderful platform. And I hope we receive so many submissions of the day two task today, and have a happy automation live.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And as for the task, the process is the same. You will get a mail by 1:30 or maximum by 2 after Nisarg uploads all the files of today's session and presentation. And after that, you are good to go. The deadline for today's task is tomorrow 12 p.m. So basically, you have around 24 hours to complete the task. The process is same. Fork the repository, upload your files, and then generate a PR. And you have to post it on social media so we can keep a track, and make sure to tag all of us and use the hashtag it was sent to you yesterday. A reminder mail was sent to you yesterday at 11 p.m. and the same we will be sent to you today as well as a reminder mail today and tomorrow morning. So yes, and do visit the website. I'll just put it here in the chat screen so you can check on the upcoming uh, tech camps. And yes, soon we are gonna come with another tech camp on robotic process automation where we'll be taking forward what Nisar has left us today. At last time when we did the IDTC RPA, Nisar took us through the basics of RPA and working out with Python. And it was a fun weekend. And this time we took it to another level, integrating AI, using AI Center, working on ML models. And next time it's gonna be big. So yes, and if you want to go with the basics, as Mr. showed, you can go to his YouTube channel, and yes, you can even check out Incubate's IND channel, and you can go through the previous tech camps. So I'm just sharing you the link for the IDTC website, so you can join and check other tech camps. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm ending the
Thank you
session.
so much. Bye.